another edition of Faces of the Game. I'm with Matthew Erley, Old Tom Capital. Matthew, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Before we get into it, tell me a little bit about Old Tom Capital for those who don't know what it is.
Yeah, so we are an investment group that is narrowly focused on the golf industry. So a few years ago, we created Old Tom Capital as a way to deploy some money into startups and companies that are operating in the golf space. There's a lot of sports investors out there. There's a lot of people kind of taking a really broad perspective on investing in sports. We felt like there was a better way to take a narrative, kind of narrow, narrative-driven approach just into golf. There hasn't been a lot of money going into golf outside of traditional green grass and golf courses historically, but there's been such an incredible there's been so much momentum happening in the startup space with technology, off-course entertainment, agronomy, software products for golf, things that are sort of floating around the golf industry. And we looked at that and said, hey, I think we can start to write some checks and see some really good return in the golf space and go deep into a category that may feel small, but it's worth hundreds of billions of dollars, and so yeah.
And when you're looking at a company, what are you looking for? What kind of stands out in some of the companies that you have invested in? What are some of those companies?
Yeah, so we look for golf connection to golf.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they have to be golf only. In fact, we really like stuff that has an addressable market that can be outside of golf, but something where they're focused in the golf space, but maybe they can move into other categories. So speaking of companies we've invested in, an example there, a company called TerraRad. They make moisture monitoring tools that basically ride on the back of a mower and shoot down on the ground and monitor moisture up to root depth for agronomists to be able to better understand moisture levels across their golf course. That has a great use case into big agriculture or construction, other things, but they're starting in golf, and we really like that, and so we made that investment. We're looking for founders that we think are capable of scaling something to a high level. Most of the founders that we've actually invested in are non-golf founders, so they're coming in from outside of golf and building in the golf space, which we find really intriguing, but maybe they've seen success in other places. And then we need to find companies that have the ability to scale, right? And so for us, when we think about that, we would be unlikely to invest in something that we didn't think could reach $100 million plus exit. There's a lot of great companies in golf that are small, and I love that, and there's nothing wrong with building a lifestyle business. But for us as investors, we obviously have to find stuff that has scale. So, really golf focus, large addressable market, great founders, and then I think just a growth strategy, a growth narrative that we think they can actually get there. They can use our money, they can use capital that they're taking to get to that next level. And so if those check the boxes, then we're in. A couple of the other companies we've invested in, DriveBox, which is a large golf startup that has really created a category for mobile simulators. So they build a simulator in a box, basically, that they're franchising across the U.S. and into some other countries now. But it's basically creating a mobile version of a golf simulator that can be used for events, and it can be used for parties, for sitting outside of a golf course in the winter. Very scalable. We think has a large addressable market, good team. So we did that investment. A couple of the others recently, Birdie Houses is a startup that is coming into the category of golf travel and tourism. Yeah. We think there is a supply problem in higher end accommodations for like group travel and golf, and so they are building these Birdie Houses, which are basically vacation rental homes in key golf markets that are built for golf travel, right? So think of Pro Vs in the in the mini bar and a simulator in the garage and a putting green out back and sitting in Pinehurst or whatnot. So, and then a ton of other stuff. I mean, we've invested in things on the software side, product companies, fashion and apparel. I think we just are looking for stuff that we think has an opportunity to become a big category winner in golf.
Yep, absolutely. And that birdie house sounds like a place that I would never leave.
Absolutely.
Sounds pretty cool. And you and I have been been around golf for a long time. It has changed a lot in the last 10, even 5 years.
Yep.
What kind of trends are you seeing? A lot of that you're talking about is software and kind of new tech driven.
Yep.
You guys are investors in Tomorrow Sports, and TGL's coming out. What kind of what do you guys see from that standpoint, and what trends are you seeing in the golf industry from 10 years ago to 5 and now now where we're at?
I think the biggest trend that we're following, where we're spending a lot of our dollars to invest, is what we would call the golf curious consumer. So the traditional golfer, I think of as someone who plays a traditional 18-hole course. They kind of following the same traditional rules of the game, right? And coming in and playing. Golf curious is this new entry point that has been driven primarily from Topgolf and other entertainment concepts. We think about that as a category where there's so much opportunity, because you think about 10 years ago, off-course entertainment didn't even exist, right? Whether it was just coming in, Topgolf, the simulator space, Putt Shack, all these different concepts. So in the last 10 years, golf has essentially doubled from a new group of players that are coming into it. And most of them are not walking onto a traditional course, and they may never walk onto a traditional course, and that's okay, right? So I think that's a huge trend that we're looking at. I would imagine half of the companies that we've invested in are specifically targeting that golf curious consumer. So that's a really important one for us. A lot of change on the technology side when we think about like agronomy, for example. A lot of things happening with tech that's catching up that superintendents are using to better manage water or conditioning on their golf courses. Whether it's companies like Arcos and others on the data management, player management side of things. So I think software and tech in general has caught up a lot in the golf space. Software certainly as a category on its own is interesting. There's a lot of club management, tee time booking, plenty of things that are happening on that side as well. And then I think categories that have done well for a long time and are continuing to grow, like golf travel, a lot of these golf curious consumers are going to be looking for places to go and spend and trips, and that might not be the highest end trip. That might be things that are more like mid-tier travel markets. So we think that that's a great category. And then I would say one thing that touches the green grass side of golf that we find interesting is we think there is a big supply problem that's happening in golf, but it's at the municipal level, right? With all of these new players coming into golf, they're not walking out on a traditional 18-hole private golf course. They're looking for maybe a short course, a par 3, an executive, and we don't think there's enough inventory. The people building golf courses right now are building private golf courses, so we're really paying attention to that and thinking about how we can have more involvement at the municipal entry point of green grass for golf.
Yeah, no, and I love that. My wife was not a golfer. I'm getting her into golf a little bit, but going out and playing an 18-hole course is very intimidating.
Yep.
And if you're able to have a place where you're able to just go out and play,
that's right,
with no pressure, and take 4 clubs or whatever, like that's the way to kind of grow the game.
Absolutely.
And it's really cool to see you guys be able to do it. Do you think this like golf curious market, is that where golf is moving? Is there going to be is that kind of the next thing that golf is going to turn into a still a recreational sport but a much bigger sport?
I think it's the rise of a new category within golf, and what I find interesting is a lot of the traditional golf people either working inside of golf or the traditional golf consumer looks at this golf curious space and maybe is in with some level of disdain, like they're making golf, they're watering down golf, or they're changing the way that golf is played, but it's actually not accurate. They're just playing a different version of it, right? It doesn't jeopardize the way that a traditional golfer wants to play. It just introduces a new format. Pickleball is not tennis. Pickleball didn't jeopardize tennis. It just created a new category, kind of like tennis, but it's something else. So we think about that in the same way with golf. A new version is great. It's whether it's things that are faster, cheaper, more casual, like all of that is going to be helpful even for traditional golf. It's going to move people more into that.
Yep.
And like I said before, even if they don't move into that, that's okay. Like we should be comfortable with somebody walks out into a Top Golf or a driving range or into a simulator for the first time and they swing a golf club. To me, they're a golfer. They're a different type of golfer maybe than a traditional golfer, but that's great, right? And so I think there's lots of new concepts that are introducing people to the game. I mean, we're sitting in Clubhouse working golf here, which is an amazing co-working space that a friend, Josh has built here. And like, this is going to introduce new people to golf 100%. As well, right? This is a co-working space with simulators and putting and, folks that come in for a meeting and then, maybe hit some putts on the putting green, like that's an entry point, right? What are they going to do next? Maybe they're going to find that, maybe they're going to enjoy that. That's an easy thing. If they walked out onto an 18-hole golf course today, like they're going to be so intimidated, they're not going to know what to do. So concepts and environments like this are going to introduce more people to the game.
Well, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we had putt-putt, a driving range, and an 18-hole golf course. And it's so cool to be able to see, the different ways that we can go. And the fact that you can go out and maybe just hit some balls or play on a simulator and play 18 holes in 40 minutes.
Absolutely.
Because we know time, everyone doesn't have 4.5 hours to go play.
Well, and I think 5-10 years ago, people were worried about where golf was going. They said it was a dying game. They said it was, only an older, stodgier individual played the game. I think looking at that now, golf is in an unbelievable position, right? But we have to continue to nurture that, right? We have to. It's like for us as investors, we're looking for return, but we also love the fact that we can invest in companies that are building the next version of what the game is, so that the game is here to stay 200 years from now, right? Like golf is going to change. Golf started in St. Andrews by, sheep herders, right? Like they were hitting a rock with a stick. The course, and the courses weren't fancy. They weren't 18 holes. They weren't long. Like, so what's the version of that? Like, I think we've actually moved a little bit too far away from that to some degree. And like, this is us maybe coming back into it, saying golf can be something different.
So what's your, if you had to give someone who's looking into starting a golf company or get into the golf industry, what's your one thing of advice that you would give them?
I think golf is one of the best places to incubate a sports company in general, because golf has such a psychotic consumer that loves the game so much, just like us, right? And so there's an opportunity for people to build in the golf space and to try to incubate and build a business in golf that could also, as I mentioned before, could scale outside of that, right? And so I think if you're building in golf, you kind of know who the customer is. If it's consumer, you know who the consumer is. If it's B2B, or you know how to you know what the golf courses are. If it's selling to superintendents, you can kind of figure out who these people are. So I think my advice is start building and qualifying and validating, and don't build in public. Build and take it out to superintendents or to the consumer or to the pro shop or whatever it is. It's all right in front of you here. Versus other categories, you may be in such a big sandbox that it's hard to figure out. How do you build? How do you launch? I think golf is big, but it also is it's a tight sandbox to go build in as a founder. So I think people just starting to actually put something out there, try to validate it, try to drive some revenue. We look for people who have created momentum. We invest really early stage, but we also need to we need to de-risk our investment somehow. And so it's like founders and builders should go out and start building and should, create some validation and then come to investors. And some people shouldn't raise from investors, right? Like I would say, 70-80% of the companies I talk to just probably don't need to and shouldn't be raising from investors. They should just go build. Like maybe go raise some money from friends and family, but like don't come to an institutional investor unless you really are planning to take it to the next level. And because we're gonna push you to grow large, and some companies are going to be, that's gonna actually harm their business. And so like I think people just also need to bootstrap and push themselves as far as they can before they come to an investor.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
If someone wants to get in touch with you guys, if they have a company, if they want to, if they're an accredited investor and are interested in this,
Yeah.
How do they go about getting in touch with you guys, finding more information about Old Tom Capital?
Yeah, on the founder side, they can go to our website, just search Old Tom Capital, and they can get in touch with us there. Always happy to talk to founders that are building interesting things within the golf space. And then, we have, the other side of what we do is we raise capital, we bring capital in from investors, right? So we have a syndicate of a few hundred, private syndicate of a few hundred investors that are all angel investors that participate in deals alongside us. So for folks that want to look at getting involved in investing in golf companies, if they're accredited investors, do the same. Go to Old Tom Capital. We have what we call Old Tom Venture Club, which is our private syndicate group, and investors can apply to get involved in that and join that. And probably half of that group are really strategic people inside the golf space that, for us, help validate and de-risk a lot of the investments that we have, and the other half are just accredited investors who love the game and want to get involved in companies that are have upside and that are also impacting golf. So would love any folks to reach out that way.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining us. It's awesome to see people like you who want to grow the game in a very different way too, and help these companies that are helping us grow the game and bring golf in a totally different light and change it from what it has been.
Absolutely.
So thanks so much, and we look forward to seeing what 2025 holds for you guys.
Yeah. Thank you.